Oh,
All right, I'm ready. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the First Chapter with Jolanda, Olivia, and myself, Carmen. Today, you'll notice that we don't have our Jay today. She's absent. Her little fur baby had a boo boo. And we're going to send some big hugs and healing vibes out to little Mason to make sure that he's all right. But in her place, we have our Joey Ellison, our longtime friend and our bosom buddy. Joey, we are so glad to have you with us today. Joey, you if you all remember from past episodes, we talked about the guys that we are still friends with, who've been friends with us for over 30 plus years. Joey is one of our guys. And Joey is also a member of law enforcement. So he's here to just talk to us about his journey through law enforcement and, everyday life stuff as we talked about stuff. So, Joey, can you tell us, what inspired you to choose a career in law enforcement?
Okay, that's funny. Um, I'll give you a little bit of both. What I said in my interview years ago, and then I'll give you the truth.
You remember that?
So,
Okay, cool.
yeah, I actually remember my interview. So when I was asked by the chief during my interview back in '98, I'm like, growing up, playing cops and robbers, I was always the cop. I've never made a good crook, you know. And then, as time went on, I used to have like career aspirations to being an attorney. But when that kind of sort of didn't happen, then another door opened and, there was the police side. I say, okay, well, either way it go, I'm be dealing with a career that's dealing with law. I'm either going to be getting them out or putting them away. So that's
Okay.
partially the truth. But,
It's still
the,
law.
the
It's
real
still a law.
truth is, right. Well, the real truth is my brother, who's a retired cop, um, back in '98, I got laid off of my job, a job that I absolutely hated. But I only took that job because it offered insurance benefits because I had a son, right? But I got laid off of that job. And then my brother shows up at my house with an application, say they hiring. And I just looked at it and say, well, what do I got to lose? It's work. So I'm like, yeah, I was unemployed and they were hiring. That's basically how I became a cop. But 27 years later, I'm like, all right, I guess I'm kind of good at it. So, you know,
really?
so yeah, that's basically it.
Okay.
Well, that's number two. Can you share a little about your? Well, no. Well, we could add a little bit sprinkle. So, besides your brother bringing you the application and you doing cops and robbers, was there anything else that influenced you to want to go into law?
Well, law or law enforcement?
Law enforcement, I
Okay.
guess, would
Yeah,
be it.
law enforcement.
Okay. Well, honestly, well, here, a funny true story. In '97, I actually considered testing for Chicago Police Department,
Hmm.
but that was the year I turned 21. But that was also the year that Chicago raised the qualifications to 23 years old and 2 years of college. So I was only 21, so I couldn't test. And then
Wow.
after I went to the academy, this is when they lowered it. But I say I'm not going back to the academy to go CPD. So believe it or not, I actually was going to apply in '97 when I turned 21.
I didn't know that they had
Hmm.
that was a recommendation that you had to go to two different academies just because you went to. I mean, it's all Illinois. I thought it would be the same
Well,
thing.
actually, I went to the Chicago Police Academy,
Uh huh.
but they have different curriculums. You got the Chicago Police recruits, and then I work in the suburbs, so they have what the Metro
Hmm.
class.
Oh, okay. Okay.
but it's all part of the same police academy. So I'm like literally in the police academy with Chicago police recruits, you know. So it's like, and then the Chicago Police Academy down on Jackson over by Whitney Young. So yeah, that's where I went.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
But if I was to leave my suburban department and apply for Chicago,
Hmm.
I would actually have to go back through the academy.
Wow.
Even after having
And
20 some years of
yeah,
experience.
because Chicago got all kinds of other stuff that you have to know, where they wouldn't necessarily be required to teach you like the Chicago municipal codes if I'm working in sub,
Oh,
you know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
I gotcha. Gotcha.
And
Okay.
so I'm like, yeah, do I really want to give up 6 months of my life again and then be up at the butt crack of dawn running 5 miles? No.
weird.
Not at your ripe young age, right?
Right. I didn't want to do it at 22 years old, so I definitely don't want to do it at 49.
I can understand that. How do you say, because I think you answered like number three and number four. Do you think that what was your first day on the job like and how has it shaped your perspective?
It's funny. I tell my trainees about my first day on the street that I ended up getting into a foot pursuit.
Hmm.
Really?
Yeah. First day. I'm like, I don't know, I've probably been on the street for about 3 hours, give or take, because it was in January, so it got dark early. So it like might have been 5:30, 6 o'clock. I think it was definitely before 7. But my field training officer, that whole day in roll call, and then when we got in the car, he kept talking about this dude that was doing a bunch of smash and grab burglaries in town, in the area that he was patrolling. He was like, he finally got like video footage or what a still photo. And he was like, yeah, so this is what the guy is wearing. He was like, yeah, I want this guy. So we driving around and we get an alarm call. So now we're driving to the alarm and we literally drive right past this guy. And he's like, that looks like my guy. And when we get to the alarm, we get to the business, we see that the front glass door had been smashed with the cinder block, the same MO of this dude, and the cash register was sitting on the floor. And the guy was walking in the opposite direction from where the alarm was. He was like, yeah. So he turns around and we roll back down the street and he pulls up right next to him. The guy got his hands in his pocket. Now, I'm brand spanking new. So, of course, I'm riding with my seatbelt. I don't do that anymore, not at work. So now he pulls up and the guy's on the side of the car where I'm at. And I'm like, man, if he got a gun, I'm a goner because I can't get out the car. Right. So I'm fiddling around with the doggone seatbelt or whatnot. Finally, I get out. The dude takes off running. My training officer starts chasing him. He's calling in the foot pursuit. So, of course, when in Rome, and I get to running too. They're like, all right, he running, I'm running, we all running, right? Now, mind you, it's my first day, so I have no idea where I'm at.
Oh,
But I was like literally like a horse chasing a carry. I ran straight past my training officer. And all I'm looking at this is this dude, and I'm chasing him. I'm like, all right, he gonna say where we at, but I'm gonna catch this dude, right? So we're running down like 159th Street, and then we run like the middle of the street. Right. And then because it was snowing, it was like a big blizzard in January '99. I don't know if y'all remember
hmm.
that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So now we running down the middle of the street. So now I'm running down the middle of Halsted, still chasing this dude. And I'm like, yeah, I got him. Give me another half a block, he mine, because I'm fresh out the academy. So I got all the wind in the world, you know, and traffic is going by. And then one car slows down and looks and sees that we chasing this dude. So he like eases up, angles the car, and like bumps the guy that we chasing.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. Knocks him over the snowbank. We tackle him, handcuff him. And then the guy's still sitting in the car. Is like, you officers okay? My training officer's like, yeah, we good. Get out of here. Get out of here. Right. We not even gonna write it up. Thank you. Thank you for your assistance, young citizen. You know. And then and then detective showed up and we all sitting there high fiving each other in the middle of the street because we just got this dude who like committed like maybe 4 burglaries. And that was my first day.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did that shape your perspective when you are training your new officers?
Well, now I'm like, well, I hope their first day ain't as exciting as mine. But you also have to take into consideration that my training officer had like a year and a half on the job
Wow.
when he was training me. So he was still new to this.
He was
And I'm
fresh
like, yeah,
too.
I get trainees and I'm at like 27 years. I'm like, bruh, no, 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 we not doing that. I'm like, if you remember the movie Colors,
Hmm.
Rogers and McGavin, he was like, hey, Pop, let's run down there and get one of them cows. He was like, no, let's walk down and get them all. That's me. We're going to walk, you know. So, yeah.
Okay.
So funny.
That was a good story. um, you want to ask a question, Olivia?
So, uh, over the years that you've been on the show, because you have been on the show for a long time, 27 years, you said,
Yep.
both in your department and in society, how has it evolved for you? Like in the department and then, or in society, how has your job evolved?
Okay. Well, my job hasn't really evolved. I'm like, I've become more jaded,
Oh, okay. Why would
you
you say
know.
that?
Huh?
Why would you say that?
Yeah. Well, that's all going to come out. But yeah, it's like, as
Okay.
far as, the lack of upward mobility in the police department and
Hmm.
then society.
Hmm.
I'm like, man, I remember 9/11/01. Everybody loved the police. Now they hate the
Hmm.
police. But yet they say that the police need more training. I'm like, no, society need more training. Y'all sending us to do all of this training, but y'all out here acting stupid. But then when you say that, you get sued for hurting their feelings. So yeah, I'm at the point in my career where I give zero Fs.
Hmm.
Like, I'm just a messenger. I'm a mirror. All right.
That's
I
zero.
will give you the same energy you give me.
That
Uh,
is a really good question. Uh, yeah, I'm bouncing all over because this kind of leads into this question. How do you deal with the emotional and mental stress that comes with your badge?
You know, you gotta have a sense of humor. Messed up. As messed up as that sounds, and I tell this to all my trainees too. I'm like, we see things that the average person don't see every day. And we see this on a daily basis. And I'm like, yeah, it pays to have like a real dark sense of humor because it's a coping mechanism. Because if you let all of that stuff get to you, why do you think the suicide rate is so high among police officers?
hmm.
Yeah.
Because we dealing with everybody else's problems, but yet we don't have anybody to dump our problems on, and we just basically internalize everything. And then a lot of them
Hmm.
just lose it.
Quick aside question. I watch The Rookie like crazy, and I know it's TV, but does the department offer police officers like psychiatrists or anybody for you guys to talk to if you needed it?
They should, but they finally like started putting these out like peer support or whatnot, where numbers
Hmm.
where you can call or whatnot. But after a while, what was this, 2014? So I'm trying to do the math. What was it, 16 years?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's when I finally started going to therapy.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, it started as couples counseling,
Hmm.
but that only lasted one session because my girlfriend at the time didn't want to hear that she was wrong. So she
Hmm.
stopped going. I said, well, I'm going to keep going because
Hmm.
I got issues. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was seeing that person for like 5 years.
Hmm.
And that's
I didn't
strange
I
that
didn't realize how messed up I was until I started going to therapy.
Would you recommend it for your new trainees now that since you've
that's
been
the
doing
question I
it?
was
Would
gonna
you
ask. Yeah.
recommend
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
I say there's no shame in it. Trust me, there's no shame in it. I
Oh,
happily
there's none.
openly talk about it.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know.
I talk about it all the time. I'm a therapy queen, so I go all the time. Well, once
That's
every two
very
weeks.
nice to hear from you, coming from not only as a a police officer saying so, but also as a black man saying that, hey, what I mean, therapy is a good thing, and that you recommended it and you go, you open it that you go. So
Yeah. The macho.
I applaud you.
Thank you. The macho stuff can only get you so far. I'm like,
Hmm.
you got to realize sometimes that you need help,
Hmm.
and it ain't always at the bottom of a bottle.
Ooh,
You
True,
know.
true.
I heard
Say
that.
that.
What the kids say? Tick,
Huh?
tick, tick. The kids do the clap like
Let's
this.
clap like
Yeah.
this. Yes,
I mean,
yes.
don't get me wrong. I do
Hmm.
like to dive head first to the bottom of that bottle, but I don't. You know,
Hmm.
that's like not my only coping mechanism. I
Right.
collect action figures, so that's my joy.
Well,
Hey,
that's good. That's what I was gonna
that's
ask. Do you
good.
have any hobbies
Mm-hmm. All right.
that
Yes.
help you with coping?
Right.
Okay.
One thing that I want to do, one more quick aside. One thing that, of course, I'm gonna go back to The Rookie because I love that TV show. It's either Law
Mhm.
and Order or The Rookie. Um, one thing they did start asking, and I don't know if they do that in your police department, is maybe trying to get more social services helping you as police officers. Would that help when you're dealing with like maybe domestic violence or child endangerment? Would that help out, or even with people with autism?
Well, like lately, so yeah, there are like services that we can recommend or we can call for like shelters like domestic violence, and then of course we got DCFS, we got Aunt Martha's for
Mhm.
like the children or
Okay.
whatnot. And then as far as the autism, I'm like, hopefully it's somebody there that lets us know what we dealing with because we might
Hmm.
not necessarily know. And I'm like, I mean, granted, it's not new,
Hmm.
not a new development because like what Rain Man came out in 1988, and I'm like, yeah, that's when we all first heard of autism. But suddenly, it's like,
Spectrum is wide, and it's hard for you to be able to tell who's on the spectrum and at what
honestly, I think it's
level.
the medication. I'm
You
like,
know.
back in the days, we didn't need pills for ADHD. We just got a backhand, and guess what? But then they put these kids on pills and then stuff, and they develop these problems as a
Hmm.
result of it. That's what I believe.
Hmm.
Just backhand them and send them on their way, and then they'd be fine.
You're right, because we didn't have all those problems in the classroom.
No,
Not at all.
No, not at all.
that's why we gonna survive a nuclear holocaust,
Gen X.
Gen
right?
X, Gen
Because
Let's
this
be
X,
new
Gen
generation,
Gen
X.
X, Gen
this
X.
new generation don't know how to deal without technology.
Hmm. Exactly. Gen X will
100%.
survive. Okay. Well, we can move on to thank you for talking about your career and how it's gone thus far. I know you're probably going to be retiring from the law enforcement career. When do you think you might retire?
Well, if I'm still in patrol this time next year, I'm out.
Wow.
That'll
So I
be
figure
like
it like
what?
this: I'll be 50 next year, and I'll be hitting 28 years. I'm like, if I'm still in patrol, if I'm still on the street, I'm like, deuces. This ain't what I signed up for. 28 years of law enforcement, I'm still a patrol officer. No.
Hmm.
Gotcha. Okay.
How many years do you normally have to serve to retire?
I mean, some people want to do 30. Some people
Oh,
want to do more. I say, luckily, I started young. So if I did 30, I'd
yeah.
have to work until I was 52.
Oh, dang.
But I started at 22 and I'll be
Yeah.
50 next year. So I'm like, hey, guess what? I've reached a good age
Hmm.
where I'll still be young enough to go do something else.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. You still at a really good age that you could go and do something else if you wanted to, if you retired at 30 years. Yeah,
Hmm.
you're at a real good age.
Y'all want to excuse me for a minute? I'm going to go grab me another bottle of water.
Sure. Go right
All right.
ahead. I'll pause
Give
it.
me one. Give me one.
All right, so next we're gonna talk about love, family, relationships, and the community that you work in. How did your career impact your relationships, like your loved ones, your family, and even your community that you work in?
Well, as far as family, you know, it's been like no difference. Like they loved me before, they love me now. You know, so like there's been no difference. But as far as like dating relationships, yeah, it look it could be a little stressful or whatnot because people always got this preconceived notion of cops are cheaters and domestics or whatnot. And I'm like, no, we just like to be left alone.
Hmm.
So but I did have a relationship end as a result of some work related stress. I got passed over for yet another promotion and I was depressed and I brought that home. And basically I was just going through the motions of life, and I wasn't wasn't talking, wasn't being affectionate, none of that, and she would like try certain things. I'm like, so I'm sorry, I'm just not really in the mood or whatnot. And yeah, she eventually left. And I say it was when that relationship ended that I said I vowed that I would never let work affect my personal life.
Hmm.
So now, if I go into a relationship, I just basically set boundaries and tell them, look here, I see enough stuff at work to remind me of what I don't want in my personal life. All right. So there we go. If you have a problem that needs to be fixed, I'm your man. But if you want to vent, go talk to one of your girlfriends. I'm not that dude. I've been listening to people's problems all day. I'm not trying to listen to your problems that you don't want a solution for. All right. I want peace and quiet. I've been dealing with noise all day. All right. You respect that. I respect you. So yeah.
You
So
like Carmen? Carmen loves her peace.
I do. I
She
love
loves
my
her
peace.
peace.
I love my peace. Um, so you as a patrol officer, what's your relationship like with the community that you work in? You have one, or it's just like I'm here to
Yeah.
solve whatever problem you have, and then I'm gone.
Basically. Yeah. I'm here.
Mhm.
I'm like, where when I was younger and it was like a lot more flair and a lot more bigger, I would walk into businesses and make small talk. Now I'm not even about small talk. I'm like, bottom line, you got a problem, I'm here to fix it. And then sometimes I got to turn into Joe Friday from Dragnet, because people will go off into a tangent. I'm like, just the facts, man. All right, here, I got to get you back on track because I don't want to be here any more than you want me here. So as soon as you get to the point of why I'm here, the sooner I can fix it, the sooner I can leave. All right, because guess what? I was just trying to eat lunch when you decided you wanted to have a problem. So now I gotta not eat lunch. So guess what? The sooner I fix your problem, the sooner I can go back to eat and go back to being left alone. So that's basically where I am now at 27 years, where it wasn't back then.
Man, okay.
So I don't go into businesses. I don't go try to make small talk. I'm like in and out, you know.
So, has your role as a police officer, as a protector, conflicted with your role as well? It basically, well, as a parent, you said how it's kind of conflicted with your role as a partner in a relationship, but as a parent.
No, not really, because like that was one thing that I could at least separate. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
I could separate parenting from police work. Now, yeah, sometimes I might have to use my outside police voice when I'm addressing the child, and they're like, yeah, then all of a sudden, oh, dad is mad or whatnot. But no, there really hasn't been like a terrible balance. It was just more so with like the intimate relationships,
Hmm.
but not
Hmm.
so much with family.
Right. So how did your family, deal with like the long hours? Well, yeah, well that's kind of what you said, the long hours and they handling the risk that your job entails. Um, it really did kind of affect your relationships, like you said before. How did I mean, how did you? Well, let's talk about your family. How did they kind of deal with that?
Well, my mom, rest her soul, bless her heart. Um, she was always worried,
Hmm.
and then I like saw like the pinnacle of her worry because I was on a call one night and we had to go up in this filthy house. All right, this house was like just ridiculously filthy. It was well over 20 years ago, probably close to 25 years ago. I don't know. And the sergeant was like, "Yeah, how far away do you live?" And I'm like 9 miles away. He was like, "Yeah, if you want to go home and burn that uniform, you can. Just hurry back." So he actually let me go home, take a shower, change uniforms, come back to work. I pulled up in front of the house in the squad car, and my mom looked out and saw the police car out there, and then she immediately thought the worst.
Mm, yeah, I could understand. She was like,
You
"Why is
know,
that squad car in front of my house?"
she
Yeah.
immediately thought the worst,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that somebody was coming to make a notification that something had happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I had to comment like, "No, man, it's cool." So I just let me come on. I gotta run and take a shower and change and then go back to work. So yeah. But then one other time, this was back in 2004. It was my mom's 54th birthday, and they had a surprise birthday party. And my mom was, I had to work, so my mom was a little sad that I couldn't make it to her party, right? But I was working 3 to 11s. It just so happens that Chicago picked up one of our warrants. He was like, "Yeah, well, he's sitting here at the first district." So I got volunteered to go down and pick up the warrant, right? I'm like, "Oh, guess what? I actually got to drive past my parents' house in order to get there." So I made a pit stop and I stopped by the house in full uniform, and the police car walked in the backyard. My mom was like so happy. She was so surprised that I was there, and then she was so happy. So there's a picture. I still have that picture. And it's like we both got big smiles on our face or whatnot and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in uniform. I'm like, yeah, it's like I can only be here for 10 minutes because I gotta go and pick up this warrant. But if y'all gonna still be out kicking it at 11, I'll come back when I get off. But yeah.
Question. You said your older brother was in law is retired law enforcement. Have you guys ever worked together?
Yeah. We worked for the same police department. As a matter of fact, yeah, he showed up at my house with the application where he was working, where I currently work. And he was like, "They
Okay.
hiring." I was like, "So," but then he left in 2002.
Oh, so
But
you guys worked together for a while though.
well, I mean,
It was like 5 years.
well, we worked for the same police department. When I started, he was in the TAC unit. So he worked different days and he was in a different unit. I
Okay.
would see
Okay.
him occasionally like, on calls. But then in
Mhm.
2001, they put him back at patrol and they put us on the same shift.
Mm.
Oh,
So I actually got to work side by side with my brother for 2 days.
2 days.
2 days.
Wow.
And then on my third day at work, my brother got shot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And that was the last time that we worked together because, I mean, he survived clearly because he's retired. But
Mm.
when he came back after 6 months, they put him on a different shift. So I never got to work with him again.
Hmm.
Mm.
And then the following year, he left and went to another police department. So yeah.
Wow.
Mm. I'm
What
trying
did
to
you
think,
do with
were we?
that?
Yeah.
I didn't. I did not know he got
I remember your
shot.
brother getting shot, but I didn't know you guys were working together when that happened.
Well, he was off duty. We had
Okay.
different day off groups. That's why I only worked with him for 2 days. So
Oh.
I was on a day off group and he was on a day off group. So his last 2 days at work were my first 2 days at work. And
Mm.
we were working 3 to 11. So those 2 days, we worked together. And then that Friday, because I still had to work that Friday and Saturday and he was off. That Friday, we were supposed to get together when I got off of work. And
Mm.
he never called, you
Mm.
know. So yeah. So yeah, I'm like, yeah,
I
we
take
worked
that
on the
back. I
same
do.
shift, but we had different day off groups. So I only got to work with him like 2 days out of the week.
Mm.
But it was literally only that first week. So I literally only got a chance to work with him for 2 days.
As your brother taught, like as a police officer and as your big brother, what was like the most valuable lesson he's taught you, like as a police officer?
You know, he's tried to tell me that, sometimes I need to keep my mouth shut and play the game. And that's
That
not
don't
me.
work with you.
But then I looked at him, I say, how'd that work out for you?
Hmm.
I said, look at you. You kept your mouth shut and you played the game and you retired as a patrol officer.
Hmm.
But you know what? I'm gonna make my own destiny. I ain't gonna leave it up to chance because I'm playing that game. Because basically all they gonna get is months and years of silence.
Hmm.
Just shut up and do what you're told. Then I sit up there and watch everybody else reap the benefits. So I'm like, no, you know. So, but yeah, he's tried to do that. But then here's the funny thing: like towards the end of his career is when he started to speak up.
Hmm.
Like by that time, it's too late. I'm like, I'd much rather speak up at the beginning of my career. So then, guess what? By the end, I was like, you can say whatever you want about me,
Hmm.
but one thing that you can't say is that I was never honest.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
You're gonna always know where I stand.
I was going to ask you what lessons that you bring from the force into your life, and I think it's probably what it sounds like. It's just like it's the opposite. You brought which how you live into the force. You don't you're not the person that's going to sit idly by and not say anything. So yeah, so
Mhm.
you brought that lesson into the force instead of the opposite way around.
It's probably a little bit more hardcore now because of the law enforcement background,
Yeah.
but y'all have known me for years. So, for the most part, I have not changed. I've gotten older, but I haven't changed. I'm like basically, well, I'm not as shy as I used to be.
I was
Okay.
gonna say that. I mean, you were
You were
shy.
shy. You were
You were
shy.
shy. You were
But when
shy.
you opened up, you opened
You
up.
opened up. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah, when you opened up, you was
And,
opened up.
and once
Exactly.
y'all were able to see that side of me, have I really changed? No, I've just probably gotten a little bit more brazen. I'm like, like zero F's, and I'm just gonna say what's on my mind instead of like, how are they gonna take this? So yeah, I guess that is one, you know,
Mhm.
thing from law enforcement to my personal life. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I just don't care what the consequences are. I'm gonna say it. Well, no, I ain't. That's probably a bad way of saying it.
You
Caring what
do
the
have some
consequences.
tact. You do have
Well, no,
some tact. You're not gonna just be brazen
right.
in every
It's not so much.
situation. You, yeah.
Well, it's not so much I don't care about the consequences. I'm like, honestly, I don't care how you take this. It needs to be said,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know. So I'm like, yeah, you can listen to the tone or you can listen to the words. If you listen to the tone, you're gonna totally miss the point. So stop focusing on my tone and focus on the words that I'm saying. Because maybe I have this tone because I'm fed up,
That's true.
That's
but
true.
it don't make the words any less true.
That's true. Yeah,
That's true too.
that is very
That's true too.
true.
Which goes into our next question, which is how does your career impact your friendships?
That's the
Um,
same question. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. That's
basically.
the same
Yeah,
question that we had. That
yeah.
our friendships and relationships outside of the thing. I mean, um, he said that you stated that for family it has not really changed. But here's a question for you: do you think the job ever caused a distance in your personal relationships or friendships? And how do you think you've overcome that?
You know what? No, because honestly, I keep those parts of me separate. So there's only a handful of my cop buddies that I'll bring around my friends.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I probably won't bring my friends around a whole bunch of my cop buddies. And the reason why is different political beliefs and stuff like that. And then here, terrific case in point. Everybody knows and loves Joe, right? That's my best friend in the whole wide world. And I've known that man for 42 years, right? But I say, after I became a cop, like we would go out. And I'm like, why is it that be like, hey, how you doing? This is my friend Olivia. She's a teacher. Nobody introduces you like that. But why I'm always introduced as Joe, he's a cop. Man, if you got
Mm,
to sit up there and tell them what I do for a living, then these are clearly people I don't want to be around.
mm,
And the reason why is because guess what? Is that code for them to cease and desist whatever it is that they are doing?
mm.
Or
Okay.
they won't act natural. They won't act normal around me because they know I'm a cop. So I'm
Mm.
like, is that somebody I want to be around? And then you open it up for them to ask me all kinds of dumbass questions about police work. And I'm like, look here, I might have been open minded to answering those questions when I was younger.
Mhm.
But now at 27 years, I said, if I'm not getting paid to talk about police work, I'm not talking about police work. I don't bring work home. You know, I leave it there. So
Mm,
yeah, but I mean, granted, he don't do that no more, but he used to do it like 20 plus years ago. And I'm like, I didn't like it. I had to check him on that. But yeah, other than that, though, I'm like, no, I'm like, just outside of like the hours. And I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, I might miss this get together because I have to work.
mhm,
Yeah. And I'm like, but of course, at the same time, I understand life happens.
mm,
Not everybody is going to be free at the same time.
mhm.
You know, that's why well, I'll wait on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um. So I got. So we're kind of rolling to the end. So I got some questions. Some kind of reflective questions for you. Looking back, what are you most proud of in your career?
In my career,
Yeah.
the fact that I've gone 27 years, it's a couple, and I have not been seriously injured.
Hmm.
Praise God.
Hallelujah.
The universe,
I,
the
I've
creator.
not
Thank
had to shoot someone. I've
Wow.
only
praise.
I've only discharged my weapon twice at work, and both times was at dogs that was running at me,
Wow.
Wow.
That's
but never at a
amazing.
person. Um, have been going to prison. I mean, I've been sued in federal court, but I haven't gone to prison. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I don't recommend that.
Thank you.
It's like
Thank you for that
that was
that
a that was
unsolicited recommendation, but
right.
the recommendation all or
Yeah,
less.
that was a harrowing ordeal, boy. Woo! You know, we
Okay.
won. We won, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of
No,
course,
no, but
you're sitting right here. You're not, you know.
I mean, no, but it was a lawsuit. It was a lawsuit in federal court. So I'm like, yeah, I wasn't going to jail, but I mean, I probably wouldn't own the stuff that I currently own because somebody else would be getting it, you know.
Right.
And then I'm like, you remember when they came out with the verdict, and then me and my partner, you remember in '95 when they found OJ not guilty.
Hmm.
Remember how OJ looked at the jury with that little smile on his face like he was about to
Hmm.
cry? That's exactly how I looked at the jury when they found us not, you know.
with, with your little chin quivering.
Right. I'm like, thank you, you know. But yeah. And then for my brief stint in investigations, I was definitely proud of the 5 murders that I closed.
That's amazing.
And it brought me joy to be able to make that phone call to contact the deceased loved ones and be like, hey, we got them and we charged them. So hopefully this will help you rest easy,
Hmm.
and that made me feel good.
Wow,
Yeah.
They're amazing, amazing
that's
career
amazing.
highs.
Yeah, yeah, those are good. That was good. So, if you could give yourself, your younger self, or one of your new recruits, any advice, what would you say?
Start with your younger self.
Start,
When
yeah,
you say
start with
my
yeah,
younger,
your
when you
younger
say my
self,
younger self,
Hmm.
younger self.
because going back to the inner child from last week, I'm like, that's why I play with toys. It's my inner
Yeah.
child,
Yeah, yeah.
my action figures. But like how much younger? Like younger law enforcement or younger self?
Younger law enforcement
Oh,
first, and then, well, do younger
No, no,
self,
do
kid.
younger self. Do younger
well,
Yeah.
self. Let's not
all right,
talk. Let's get off of law enforcement. Do younger
okay.
self.
Honestly, looking back at it, I say I probably would have talked myself into joining the military.
Explain.
Huh?
Explain.
Why?
Like,
Well, I would because I look back and I think, where would my life be right
Hmm.
now? You know. Now, unfortunately, I tried to enlist 2 years late, two
Hmm.
years too late. If I would have gone in right out of high school, guess what? If I was still in there, I'd have 30 years in.
That's true.
If I was still in there, or I could have done my time and then came out and became a cop.
mm-hmm.
But then I would have had that military background too.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Um, but unfortunately, because like probably be hard for y'all to believe, but now, especially considering me now, you remember back in the '90s when I was like my pro black, I was wearing the medallions and stuff and
Yep.
wearing stars
High
and all
top
that.
pay.
Right. I ain't trying to join no white man's military. Right. But yeah, as it happens, my son's mother got pregnant in '96. And I say, yep, now's the time for me to try to join because now I can get government benefits because I got a kid on the way.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, I got rejected from the United States Navy in 96 because in 95 I broke my leg playing football. So I got a steel
Mm.
rod and 3 screws in my right leg. So that just ended whatever potential military career I could have ever had because of that. But if I
Mm.
would have tried to enlist before then, you see what I'm saying?
Would never had that
But
injury.
one door closed, another one opened. 2 years later, I became the police. So yeah, but yeah, I would wonder where my life would be. But then at the same time, I would still know all of you all. But
Mhm.
you know, it just been like a different trajectory. Like how many of my friends that I know now that I probably would. If I joined in 94, I wouldn't have my son.
That's true.
Or maybe I would have my son, it just wouldn't be with his mom.
Hmm.
You know, it would be an entirely different life. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I'm like, but that's a whole bunch of what ifs. So I'm like, I like the life I have. I'm like, I got a fairly charmed life, you know. But yeah, I'm like, but that's one. Yeah. Yeah. Join the military,
Okay.
you know. Then you could have used that government grant, the military grant to go back to school. And
Hmm.
now I'm getting my degree on the United States government and not out of pocket. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Hey,
one question. You guys don't get the same like benefits as police officers to go back to school?
I mean, all right here. They have tuition reimbursement, but it's like
Okay.
pulling teeth, got to get it,
Oh, okay.
you know? So, yeah.
Okay.
okay. Here's a final question that we have, and if you want to ask Olivia a question or myself a question, we'll give you opportunity to do that. How do you define legacy? First, both as a man and then as a police officer.
Hmm. That's a good question.
Hmm. I'm going to start with legacy as a police officer. You know, as much as I want to sit up there and say I probably won't have much of a legacy as a police officer, there's a handful of people that I have helped throughout the years that might actually still remember. But I know I'm going to be remembered by all my coworkers.
Hmm.
Like, hey, he was funny. Yeah, he was a bit of a butthole, but he was funny. He always spoke his mind. He always had our backs. You know.
You've trained. You're a trainer, so you're going to be remembered. You're going to have a legacy because you helped a lot of new recruits, start their career. You put them out there with some tools, so you have a legacy there.
Well, you know what? Here, terrific case in point. Two people from the past. One guy that I trained 24 years ago, and one guy that I trained 22 years ago. The one guy from 24 years ago is deputy chief at a police department right now.
Wow.
Wow, that's a
Well, at a
legacy.
police department, not my police department.
Hmm.
Another guy that I trained 22 years ago is commander of his own unit in another police department.
That's a great
That
legacy
that's a
that you
great
did.
legacy right there as a police officer.
So those who can't do teach.
Hey, hey,
Because
hey.
why am I wait a minute, why am I not in command staff? But
Two
yet
teachers
here
right
it is. I'm
here.
training all
Two
of these
teachers
doggone.
right here. Two
I know. I'm
educators,
just saying. But I'm saying,
veterans.
like, but you know what? I don't want to be on the street. I want to be an admin. I'm
Yeah,
tired
but
of
I think
teaching
for you,
future
you are very
admin.
valuable. People need your wisdom. And I think that's probably one reason too why they always give you the new recruits because people need your wisdom.
It's a wisdom that comes with no chaser. It's not
Yep,
watered down. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
It's funny. We had a class of 10 graduate, and I got them all like doing this little chant, like because one of the detectives sent me a meme on Instagram, and it's like, yeah, when they leave you alone with all the new recruits and you turn them all into angry burnouts, and it was a picture of Skeletor with like 5 baby Skeletors, and they all holding up a staff, like. And yeah, it's just funny because I'm like, yep, that's me with all the new recruits. And like one person I was training, I'm like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. You know, when she like snapped on somebody and everybody looked at me and said, no, that's all her. That's not me.
So
Who
what
is
about your
next?
legacy as a
Yes,
man?
man.
You know what? Honestly, I think I'm doing pretty good every time I look at my son's accomplishments.
Mhm. 100%.
I remember back when
Yeah.
he was in college, you know, when he went to Georgetown, he asked me, "Hey, Dad, how would you feel if I became a cop like you?" I was like, "Why would you want to be a cop like me? I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better than me." You know, look at him now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was talking to him
Practice
the other
in
day.
law.
I was talking to him the other day, and then I'm like, "You have managed, or in 2 years when you actually go through it, you will have managed to achieve two goals that I never did. One, you became a lawyer. Two, you got married. I've
Mhm.
never been married, you know? And then, yeah. So I'm like,
You're doing good
eh,
in both areas.
yeah.
You're doing real good in both areas. Proud of
You
you. I a little
you
jealous.
raised them, so
So
And
this
then
will
I'm
give
like,
you an opportunity. Do you have any questions you want to ask Olivia or myself?
well, yeah, as a matter of fact, to throw it back, how has my life as a police officer affected you all?
hmm.
Hmm.
Well, I will say this. At the beginning, I was scared to death because I remember that call, now that you talked about it, about your brother getting shot, and me and Carmen tried to come to the hospital
Yeah. That's
because
why I said
Joseph
I can
called
remember.
us.
And I was like, we were trying to find out where he was. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph then told us, because he came and saw, he said, you told us not to come. And that pissed us off because we were so scared for you. So at the beginning, very, very scared, like for a long time. Um, but like everybody started living life, and I was like, I would always say, I hope he's okay. I would always say, I hope the guys are okay, period. But like you as a police officer, especially when 9/11 happened, I was like, oh shit. Because I know how it affected up here, because I'm by the base, how that affected the people up here. So I was like, oh my God. But like now seeing you, I'm
And
at
knowing
peace
that
because
you
I
had to
know
be
that you
out there.
are okay. And if you really had something that was going on, you might not tell us directly, but you would tell us so that we could be there for you. So I think, and that brazenness has been really good for us, our friendship. I feel like it's grown our friendship. So
Yeah, absolutely. Because I
Everybody
mean,
respects honesty. The more
exactly.
brutal, the
And
better.
it takes a bravery to be honest like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Because a lot of people can't, they don't understand it, or like they said, their feelings get in the way of hearing the truthness, or I mean the honesty behind whatever the message is, and they don't get it because feelings get in the way. But the three of us, Jolanda, Jolanda, three of us, the three girls, we've always been. You all could always be honest with us. We've
Hmm.
always asked you be honest with us, and that has been our friendship.
Yeah. What else you want to ask us?
You think. All right. Okay. So I asked you how me being there in law
Uh-huh.
enforcement affected you all. How do you all feel towards law enforcement what has happened in the past, where it's going currently, and where it could be better, or where the police could be better, where the people could be better. What do you think as civilians?
Well,
Oh,
I can say that I've always had a healthy respect for law enforcement. I don't think it's so much as a departmental thing as is an individual thing. Like the way that it is now, I think you all have the training to
Mhm.
to be able to handle most situations, but I don't think the individuals may have that capability to
Right.
handle the situation. It's the individual behind the badge and not the badge itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
agree with
would
that
agree.
wholeheartedly. I actually too, like Carmen, um, as law enforcement in general, definitely believe what Carmen says. Um, I actually, it's so funny because I actually, uh, my son, he wanted to be a police officer for a while. He actually went to the military. So that was something that I was like, okay, I was nervous about. And Rob, he actually wanted to be a police officer and all of that stuff, which for me, I was like, nah, don't do it. Stay in the military versus going to a police officer. But he stayed in the judicial system working with kids. Um, but all that to say, I think police now, like Carmen said, it's the individual. I do see in certain places, not in all places, because I live here in Lake County, I do see a little bit more, I'm not gonna say dirt. I see them not always upholding the right thing. Um, because of whatever their own beliefs are.
Mhm.
I've seen uh police officers getting written up, like doing things that they shouldn't have done and things like that. As a nationwide, I think that police need that extra help. Like I was asking you about before, like having a social worker with them, having some other people with them to help de-escalate sometimes certain things.
Need to
Um,
decompress. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That they're having those social services really would benefit police
yeah,
officers in a whole, you know what I mean? It should be there. You know, we have social services that help children inside school. Like you
yeah.
said, you mentioned unmarked and things like that. We have metropolitan services that come into schools, and social workers try to help children that deal with these traumas that they have, dealing that come from their home, and then they have to bring those traumas to school and then try to learn something. Then we got to try to
Hmm.
teach them, So, but still, in all, you all see those traumas firsthand, and then you got to go home and try to be an individual outside of that. So those social services should be able to benefit police officers as individuals as well. I think that's where you know it you all can use some help in. You
Mhm.
know, not so
Now,
much that we should defund the police. You know what I mean? That no, you shouldn't do that.
now I'm going to say this. I'm like, probably the worst thing to happen to police officers, as well as society, is social media, because
Hmm.
you know, you know, watching you all's videos and then discussing this, I'm like, all right, I believe racism still exists. I
Hmm.
don't, I don't think it's as overt as it used to be. And I'm like, in my 49 years on this planet, I've actually experienced more racism from black people and
Hmm.
Mexicans than with white folks.
Hmm.
You know, only one white person ever called me an N,
Hmm.
and that was back in 1993. All right, but not before then and not since then. You know, with the exception of the occasional drunk while I'm at work. But but going back to the whole racism thing, You got certain people that have certain beliefs, right?
Hmm.
And they might put those beliefs out there on social media. But then they go out and they do this job. And then they get faced with a situation where they have to act. And they could be 100% justified in what it was that they did. Unfortunately, that's social media post. So, yeah, let's say you got this white officer with questionable to racist views. But then all of a sudden he's at work and then he's faced with a situation where he has to end a black man's life. 100% justified. But guess what? Now they're going to paint him as a racist. And guess what? Now he's going to go to prison for the rest of his life for doing his job. That's not fair. You see what I'm saying?
Oh wow, that's a view that I have not heard before, and I would never have heard that particular scenario or that point of view unless I've heard it from a police officer. Unless you know what I mean, someone in law enforcement would say.
That's why I'm like, yeah,
I
you
would never
probably
would have got
shouldn't
that
post
perspective.
your true thoughts on social media
Mhm.
I
because
mean, it
if,
happens to teachers all the time,
Yeah,
Carmen. I
if,
mean,
yeah,
right, if in
I,
the
it
event
does. But
some
it
shit happens,
yes, it really
somebody's
does.
going to
You're
pull that
right.
up.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
yeah, it
there's been
Somebody's
a
going
does.
to
lot of
pull that up.
teachers. Matter of fact, there was up here. There was a teacher who posted something and ended up uh, one of the kids thought it was about them and ended up getting killed because of it.
Oh, wow. See? And it's like, that's how you felt at that moment. But now, if the stuff hit the fan, somebody's going to sit up there and say that's your entire ideology.
That's true.
But on this day in 2015, that's
That's how
how I
you
felt.
felt. That's how you felt.
But that's not how I feel now in 2025. I just felt like that on that day at that moment.
Hmm.
When I saw that meme, it spoke to me that day,
Hmm.
you know. But
Mhm.
they'll look at that and be like, oh, there you go. That's all the proof you need that this person is that. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the whole narrative that they're going to try to spin.
Okay.
That's a lot to think about.
There it is. Joey, thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
us
thank you.
today. This has been a wonderful conversation to just talk to you about what you do and the life you live, even though we know
We're
you.
gonna have you back though as the
Yes,
guys. We are gonna
yes,
invite all of you guys back next time as a group to see
right,
how our dynamics are together.
right. Because
So
there's
that'll
not
be your
many.
next time.
Yeah, we don't have. We came to realize that we have a unique dynamic, as that we have a friend group that actually has that's been going on for 35 plus years that has men and women still together.
Right.
It's very unique.
Which is
I
amazing.
appreciate you ladies for having me, and I'm sorry I missed Yolanda. So give her my love and tell her I hope all is well with her baby.
We
Okay,
will. We
we
will.
will. All
But
right.
Thank,
since she's not here, you had another J to add, though.
Right, that's what I said.
yes,
We don't
we
have that
did.
J, but we added
We
another
got
one. Well, we
another
did.
J.
We did. All right, everybody.
Thank
Thank you again
you.
for joining us for another episode of Beyond the First Chapter, and we'll see you next time. Bye.